There are moments in life when your soul whispers before your mind understands. It warns you of the people who quietly drain your spirit, dim your clarity, or redirect your heart away from the one who gives it life. Spiritually harmful people don't always arrive with obvious red flags. Sometimes they come wrapped in familiarity, affection, or shared history. Yet the signs are there. Subtle, quiet. They are the ones who make your heart feel heavier, not softer, who pull you into cycles, not growth, who shift your focus from inner truth to outer noise. They feed your insecurities, not your faith. They magnify your wounds, not your healing. And the most dangerous among them are not those who break you loudly, but those who erode your soul silently. This world already exhausts us with its pressures, its expectations, its illusions. You cannot afford to invite people into your inner world who deepen that exhaustion. Protecting your heart is not selfish. It is spiritual responsibility. Allah entrusted you with a soul, fragile, luminous, and worthy of protection. Pay attention to the energy people leave in your life after they walk away. Do they leave you remembering God or forgetting Him? Do they awaken gratitude or bitterness? Do they bring peace or turmoil? Your heart always knows. Listen to it, because your spiritual life is not destroyed in a day. It is stolen in small moments when you keep the wrong people clues. Some doors must remain closed, not because of arrogance, but because your soul deserves safety. And sometimes the most powerful act of worship is letting go of what is harming your connection with Allah. Protect your heart. Guard your light, and never apologize for choosing peace over chaos, sincerity over drama, and faith over familiarity. People who constantly drain your emotional or spiritual energy are often not recognized at first. They move through your life quietly, taking small pieces of you with every interaction. You begin by offering compassion, understanding, and patience, believing that love means carrying someone's burden. But slowly, something within you starts to feel depleted. You find yourself exhausted after conversations that once felt easy, unsure why your chest feels heavy even when no harsh words were spoken. The truth is, not all harm arrives in loud, destructive ways. Sometimes it comes in the form of someone who has no space for your feelings, only their own. Someone who expects you to show up for their storms while never offering shelter for yours. Someone who pulls from you endlessly, yet gives nothing that nourishes your heart in return. And because you are kind, because you are empathetic, you convince yourself that setting limits would be unkind. But your soul knows better. It whispers to you in the quiet moments, as fatigue, as frustration, as a sense of being spiritually unbalanced. It reminds you that something is off, even if your mind is trying to rationalize it. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep love out. They are gates meant to protect the purity of your heart. When someone drains your spirit, they are drawing from the energy you need to worship, to heal, to grow, to stay connected to Allah. The heart cannot remain soft when constantly overwhelmed. It begins to crack, not from a single break, but from tiny fractures caused by emotional overextension. This is why Allah commands balance, compassion, and wisdom. You were never meant to sacrifice your spiritual well-being to maintain relationships that take more than they give. Caring for others should not come at the price of abandoning yourself. When you give from emptiness, you are not truly giving, you are bleeding. And bleeding souls cannot sustain anyone. There comes a moment when you must pause and ask yourself, what is this relationship doing to my heart? Does it bring me closer to the person Allah wants me to be, or does it pull me into patterns of anxiety, guilt, and self-doubt? Does this person inspire sincerity or encourage emotional chaos? Do I feel lighter or heavier after being in their presence? These questions are not selfish. They are necessary. Your heart is the vessel through which you experience faith. Anything or anyone that repeatedly drains it becomes a spiritual burden, no matter how familiar, how beloved, or how long they have been part of your life. The hardest truth is accepting that some people are not intentionally harmful. They may be struggling, wounded, or unaware of the impact they have on you. But regardless of intention, the effect remains. Your spirit weakens, your peace diminishes, your light flickers. You are allowed to love someone deeply and still recognize that their presence is damaging. You are allowed to choose distance. You are allowed to protect your peace. Compassion does not require self-destruction. If someone consistently drains your energy, it is not cruel to set boundaries. It is an act of spiritual responsibility. You cannot hold someone else's weight when you are sinking. Sometimes, the most merciful thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to step back and let Allah take over. When you begin establishing boundaries, you will feel discomfort at first. Your heart, trained to give endlessly, may resist. But with time, you will feel your spirit returning to you. You will feel your prayers deepen, your thoughts quiet, your emotions stabilize. The parts of you that were drained will slowly refill with clarity, gratitude, and strength. You will realize that the peace you were craving was never far away. It was simply buried under the weight of carrying too much for too long. Boundaries bring you back to yourself. They bring you back to Allah. And once you experience that kind of alignment, you'll understand that preserving your heart is not selfish. Anyone who distracts you from Allah, your purpose, or your inner peace becomes a spiritual danger, even if they don't recognize the impact they have on you. Sometimes these distractions come wrapped in affection, familiarity, or comfort, making them difficult to identify. At first, you may not notice the shift within yourself. You may not realize how your priorities begin to bend, how your focus begins to blur, or how your heart slowly detaches from what once kept you grounded. But the signs are always there. When someone leads you away from remembrance instead of toward it, when they pull your attention into worldly noise instead of spiritual clarity, when their presence leaves your soul unsettled instead of anchored, your heart is telling you the truth your mind is hesitant to accept. Spiritual danger doesn't always appear as obvious sin or harmful behavior. Sometimes it comes through people who pull you into constant distraction. Distraction from prayer, from sincerity, from your own inner compass. They become a louder voice than the one Allah placed inside you. They steer your emotions so strongly that your worship woo, your discipline fades, and your moral clarity becomes cloudy. When you find yourself too occupied with what people think, what someone feels, or what a relationship demands, your heart slowly shifts its center. And when something or someone becomes your center besides Allah, imbalance always follows. Sometimes the person is not unkind, not malicious, not even aware. Yet their presence consumes space in your heart that should be reserved for the one who created it. Nothing is more spiritually dangerous than letting the temporary replace the eternal. Your purpose in this world is fragile and sacred. Allah crafted it with intention. Your talents, your struggles, your tests, your path. Anyone who weakens your connection to that purpose, or who encourages you to compromise your values for approval, companionship, or validation, is not a harmless influence. They are a barrier, even if unintentionally. You were not created to lose yourself in people. You were created to rise through your relationship with Allah. The moment you allow someone to direct your worth, your choices, or your peace, you hand over something that belongs only to Him. Those who truly care for you will never lead your heart away from your Creator. They will protect your spiritual well-being the same way you would protect theirs. But those who drain your attention, distract your mind, or pull you into emotional chaos, even in subtle ways, are not safe for your soul. Inner peace is not found in people. It is found in alignment with Allah. Anyone who disturbs that alignment, whether through constant negativity, emotional manipulation, unnecessary drama, or demands that pull you away from your purpose becomes a weight your heart should not have to carry. You deserve relationships that remind you of who you are and why you were created. Relationships that strengthen your patience, deepen your gratitude, and encourage your spiritual growth. But when someone becomes a source of anxiety, confusion, or distance from your own truth, they become a spiritual danger long before you realize it. The heart is delicate. It bends easily, attaches deeply, and breaks. It must be protected, not surrendered to every passing influence. And sometimes the most painful realization is understanding that someone you once valued is no longer good for your soul. That their presence dims your light instead of brightening it. That their influence pulls you sideways instead of forward. And that remaining close to them requires you to compromise parts of yourself you cannot afford to lose. Protecting your peace does not make you cold. It makes you wise. Prioritizing Allah does not make you distant. It makes you alive. And distancing yourself from anyone who distracts you from your purpose does not make you cruel. It makes you spiritually responsible. Your heart was created for remembrance, not confusion. It was created for clarity, not chaos. It was created not for people who lead it astray. When you choose to walk away from what distracts you, you are actually walking back toward who you were always meant to be. Harmful people make your wounds deeper instead of guiding you toward healing and growth, and often this harm is subtle, almost invisible at first. They don't always enter your life with the intent to hurt. Sometimes they arrive under the guise of love, friendship, or mentorship. Yet, regardless of intention, the impact is undeniable. When someone consistently reacts to your pain with judgment, impatience, or dismissal, they are not offering support. They are intensifying the hurt you already carry. Your heart, which came into this world delicate and full of hope, begins to carry extra weight, not because of life's challenges alone, but because of the very people who should have held space for your healing. True growth comes from reflection, understanding, and guidance toward truth. But harmful people do the opposite. They feed your insecurities, amplify your mistakes, and keep you trapped in cycles of self-doubt, fear, and confusion. The subtlety of this harm is what makes it so dangerous. It creeps into your life disguised as advice, concern, or institute, but it erodes your spirit one small step at a time. When someone deepens your wounds instead of helping them heal, it affects every layer of your being. Mentally, you begin to question your worth. Emotionally, your heart becomes guarded, hesitant to trust not only others but also yourself. Spiritually, your connection to Allah may feel strained because the inner peace required for sincere worship is overshadowed by turmoil. The most painful part is that these people often convince you that their presence is necessary or beneficial. You start rationalizing their behavior, believing that their criticism, control, or emotional manipulation is meant to toughen you, teach you, or felt. But growth cannot come from consistent harm. Healing is a gentle, deliberate process that requires safety, patience, and guidance aligned with truth. Anything else is merely damage disguised as care. Harmful people tend to react negatively when you show vulnerability. Your attempts to share your struggles are met with indifference, blame, or even ridicule. Rather than creating a space for you to feel, process, and emerge stronger, they push you deeper into your pain, making it feel unworthy or burdensome. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself. Not because your wounds are too big to heal, but because someone repeatedly made you feel incapable of healing. Your spirit, once resilient and hopeful, can become fragile and anxious. This is the hallmark of spiritually and emotionally harmful relationships. They teach you that your wounds define you, rather than showing you that they are a path to growth, empathy, and true growth and healing are not always easy, but they are nurturing. They require people or circumstances that reflect patience, encouragement, and wisdom. They involve guidance that illuminates the lessons within your struggles instead of magnifying your pain. They honor the natural rhythm of your heart, allowing you to process, forgive, and emerge stronger. Harmful people, by stronger, are impatient with your process. They are uncomfortable with your healing journey because it highlights their inability to control you or because it exposes their own flaws. They often act out of projection, using your wounds as mirrors for their insecurities, inadvertently or deliberately, keeping you tethered to pain rather than release. And the danger is not only emotional, it seeps into your faith, your self-perception, and the way you approach every new connection. The choice to distance yourself from these harmful influences is not easy. It often comes with guilt, confusion, or fear of confrontation. But protecting your heart and your soul is essential. Healing requires space, and growth requires clarity. Removing yourself from those who make your wounds deeper is an act of courage, self-respect, and spiritual responsibility. It is not abandonment of love, it is prioritization of truth. It is not weakness. Every soul deserves relationships that guide it closer to peace, understanding, and divine alignment, not chaos, doubt, or further injury. And when you step away from harmful people, you create room for healing, growth, and the kind of love and support that strengthens your spirit rather than diminishes it. Your heart, though wounded, is resilient. Guard it, nurture it, and allow it to flourish in spaces that honor your journey toward wholeness. Your soul feels heavy, anxious, or unsettled after interacting with certain people, and this feeling is never accidental. It is a quiet, persistent whisper from within, a signal that something in your life is out of alignment with your spiritual and emotional well-being. Often, we try to ignore it because we don't want to offend, we fear confrontation, or we tell ourselves that discomfort is simply part of being close to others. But your soul's unease is not trivial. It is a compass pointing you toward truth. It is the part of you that recognizes energy that does not belong to you. It's the subtle tension that arises when someone's presence pulls you away from peace rather than toward it. If your heart consistently feels heavier after conversations, interactions, or even fleeting encounters, it is not weakness or oversensitivity. It is your inner self protecting you, sending signals that something needs attention, awareness, or distance. When you feel unsettled around someone, it often reflects patterns that are harmful or draining. Perhaps they speak without empathy, judge without understanding, or bring drama into spaces that should be calm. Maybe they criticize, manipulate, or dismiss your feelings in ways that leave subtle, lingering pain. The heaviness in your chest, the anxious flutter in your stomach, the restless thoughts that follow. These are not coincidences. They are indicators that your energy has been compromised. Emotional and spiritual boundaries exist for this very reason, to preserve the integrity of your heart, your mind, and your connection to Allah. Ignoring these feelings is like covering warning lights on a dashboard. You may think you are safe, but damage is quietly accumulating. Trusting your feelings does not mean acting impulsively or cutting everyone off at the first sign of discomfort. It means observing the patterns, listening attentively to the signals, and evaluating how interactions impact you over time. Notice if your peace, your focus, or your joy consistently diminishes after being around someone. Notice if your prayers feel lighter, distracted, or insincere because of the energy they bring into your life. These are subtle but powerful indicators. The soul never lighters. It is the most honest reflection of your inner spiritual state. If anxiety, heaviness, or unrest consistently follows certain people or interactions, it is your responsibility to protect your heart, to keep it safe, to honor the sacred trust that Allah has placed within you to care for your own spiritual and emotional health. It is also important to recognize that the discomfort your soul feels may not always be about the other person alone. Sometimes it reflects the ways in which you allow your boundaries to be crossed, or the ways in which your energy is not being replenished through prayer, reflection, and self-care. But regardless of the source care, the feeling itself is valid, and it demands attention. Your soul is not meant to carry the burden of someone else's chaos, unresolved pain, or negativity. You are not responsible for fixing everyone who enters your life, and you are not obligated to endure interactions that leave you spiritually and emotionally depleted. Recognizing this truth is not selfish. It is necessary for your survival, your growth, and your alignment with your purpose. Learning to trust these feelings is a form of spiritual maturity. It teaches you discernment, patience, and courage. It teaches you that peace is a priority, not a luxury. It shows you that relationships should not be measured by obligation alone, but by the effect they have on your inner world. When your soul feels heavy after being with someone, pay attention. Reflect on why this is happening. Ask yourself what boundaries are being crossed and what protections you can put in place. Pray for clarity, for strength, and for guidance to navigate these situations with wisdom and compassion. And understand that stepping away from harmful energy is not a failure of character. It is an act of reverence for the soul Allah entrusted to you. Your emotional and spiritual well-being matters. Your peace matters. The weight you carry after interactions with certain people is not a burden you must ignore. It is a call to action. It is a reminder that your heart is sacred, that your soul deserves protection, and that you have the responsibility to honor the subtle but profound guidance it offers. Always trust that feeling, because it is the voice of your inner self, your conscience, and your connection to the one who knows you best. It is your most reliable guide toward relationships, spaces, and energies that uplift, nourish, and sustain you rather than deplete you. When you listen to it, you are listening to truth. When you act on it, you are honoring yourself and your spiritual journey. Spiritually harmful relationships have a way of creeping into your life quietly, almost imperceptibly, eroding your faith through subtle negativity and influence. Unlike overtly toxic situations, these relationships rarely arrive with dramatic warnings. Instead, they infiltrate your heart gradually, shaping your thoughts, decisions, and feelings in ways that pull you away from the clarity and strength of your connection with Allah. At first, you may not notice the shift. Perhaps you begin to excuse behaviors, rationalize criticism, or accept negativity as normal. Over time, however, the constant undercurrent of doubt, distraction, and pessimism begins to weigh on your soul, leaving you spiritually fatigued without fully understanding why. This is the danger of spiritual harm. It does not always hurt in obvious ways, but it undermines the foundation of your faith, one small compromise at a time. These relationships influence you through what they normalize and reinforce. When someone consistently undermines your confidence, mocks your devotion, or prioritizes worldly desires over spiritual principles, they subtly teach your heart to question your beliefs. They may not attack your faith outright, but the cumulative effect of their attitudes, habits, or careless words can slowly distance you from your own practices, your inner peace, and your connection with Allah. You begin to feel that being kind, patient, or devout is unnecessary or even burdensome. The spiritual practices that once nourished your heart, prayer, reflection, remembrance, start to feel heavy or optional. Gradually, you may find yourself compromising your values, not in rebellion, but in quiet adaptation to the environment around you. This is how spiritually harmful relationships operate. They do not need to shout. Their influence is persistent, insidious, and deeply persuasive. The subtlety of their impact makes them difficult to identify because you may still love the person, respect their role in your life, or feel loyal to shared history. Yet love and loyalty do not guarantee that someone is spiritually safe for you. Those closest to us can unintentionally pull us away from the path of spiritual growth because their priorities, attitudes, or habits are misaligned with divine guidance. The patterns may include judgment disguised as advice, constant negativity disguised as concern, or pressure to compromise your inner values disguised as flexibility. The harm is not always about what they say directly, but how their presence shapes your thoughts, choices, and perception of what is permissible or meaningful. These small influences accumulate like a slow erosion, weakening your spiritual foundation until you may barely recognize the vibrant, faithful heart you once had. Spiritually harmful relationships also create distractions that draw you away from reflection and the pursuit of personal growth. Instead of inspiring you to seek closeness to Allah, they foster preoccupation with doubt, worry, or comparison. You may find yourself justifying behaviors, worrying excessively about acceptance, or feeling emotionally drained after interactions. This exhaustion makes it difficult to engage with your faith wholeheartedly, to maintain the discipline and consistency required to nurture your soul. And in a world already full of challenges and distractions, allowing these relationships to persist can subtly erode not only your confidence in yourself, but your confidence in the power and mercy of Allah. Awareness is key. You must pay attention to how certain relationships influence your spiritual state. Do you leave interactions feeling lighter and closer to your purpose, or heavier and more uncertain? Are your devotional practices strengthened, or do they feel disrupted? Do your thoughts about yourself, your faith, or the world shift in ways that align with growth, or do they leave you doubting, anxious, or complacent? Trusting these observations is not selfish, it is spiritual due. Recognizing the presence of harmful influences is the first step toward reclaiming your energy, your faith, and your inner peace. Protecting your soul is not about abandoning people in anger or becoming disconnected from humanity. It is about preserving the integrity of your faith. It is about creating space for relationships and environments that reinforce your spiritual principles, encourage your growth, and leave you uplifted rather than depleted. Sometimes this requires distance, boundaries, or even severing ties with those who consistently exert a negative influence, not out of malice, but out of responsibility to your spiritual well-being. Every believer's journey involves navigating relationships carefully, being aware that not everyone who shares your life will share your spiritual goals, and understanding that the preservation of your heart and faith is a sacred duty entrusted to you by Allah. Spiritually harmful relationships may seem harmless on the surface, but their effects are profound over time. They weaken your faith not with loud confrontation, but through persistent, subtle influence. They shift your heart and mind in imperceptible ways, distancing you from clarity, devotion, and peace. By recognizing these patterns, listening to your soul, and taking intentional steps to protect your spiritual health, you reclaim the energy, faith, and focus necessary to walk your path with sincerity, resilience, and alignment with the one who knows and cherishes your heart most deeply. Protecting yourself and letting go of harmful individuals is an act of faith, not selfishness, yet it is often misunderstood as the opposite. Our hearts are naturally wired to love, to forgive, and to nurture relationships. Even when they are harmful to our own well-being, we convince ourselves that enduring toxicity is a sign of loyalty or patience, that staying despite the cost proves our strength or compassion. But faith does not demand self-destruction. Faith asks you to honor the soul Allah entrusted to you, to preserve the sacred space within your heart, and to act in ways that protect your spiritual and emotional health. Letting go of those who harm you is not a failure of character. It is a profound acknowledgement that your connection with Allah, your inner peace, and your purpose cannot be compromised. It is not a rejection of love or duty. It is a devotion to the one who created you and knows what your soul truly needs. Harmful individuals can take many forms. Sometimes they are manipulative, controlling, or critical, imposing their expectations at the cost of your peace. Sometimes they are indifferent, unaware, or careless, leaving a trail of exhaustion and spiritual fatigue in their wake. Their presence can cloud your judgment, weaken your faith, or pull you into patterns that distance you from your values and your purpose. And the longer these relationships continue without boundaries, the more they slowly erode your confidence, your clarity, and your connection to Allah. Protecting yourself is not about pride or anger. It is about acknowledging that your soul has limits and that no relationship should continuously demand more than you can give without reciprocation, respect, or alignment with your spiritual journey. Letting go is often accompanied by feelings of guilt, doubt. You may worry about hurting someone else, about being perceived as unkind, or about losing a part of your life you once cherished. Yet the discomfort you feel is temporary, while the cost of staying in harmful relationships can be lifelong. The soul does not thrive in captivity to negativity or chaos. Every interaction leaves an imprint on your heart, and prolonged exposure to harm dulls the light within you, making it harder to pray with sincerity, to act with clarity, or to pursue the path Allah has designed for you. Choosing distance, setting boundaries, or stepping away entirely is not a rejection of humanity. It is a commitment to the sacred trust of protecting the heart, the mind, and the spirit. Faith is ultimately about alignment with Allah, with your purpose, and with your inner truth. When you remove yourself from harmful influences, you are affirming that your spiritual health matters. You are affirming that your heart is worthy of care, that your prayers deserve focus, and that your energy should be invested in growth, reflection, and worship rather than in draining dynamics that pull you away from the path. This is not selfishness. You are entrusted with a soul, and your responsibility is to honor it by creating spaces, relationships, and routines that nourish it. It is an act of obedience to Allah, who commands balance, self-care, and the pursuit of peace in all aspects of life. Letting go also opens room for healing, clarity, and connection. When harmful individuals are removed from your immediate suit, you can reconnect with your purpose, restore your energy, and deepen your faith. Your heart becomes lighter, your mind clearer, and your soul more attuned to the subtle guidance of Allah. You learn to distinguish between relationships that uplift and those that drain, between words that encourage growth and words that perpetuate doubt. This discernment is a form of spiritual maturity, a recognition that your well-being is not optional, and that preserving your faith requires active, sometimes difficult choices. It is important to remember that protecting yourself does not require harshness, anger, or revenge. It requires wisdom, patience, and intention. It may involve gently stepping back, establishing firm boundaries, or ceasing contact while maintaining compassion. Faith does not demand enduring harm in the name of loyalty. It demands that you honor the life, heart, and soul Allah gave you. Choosing yourself in this way is not a betrayal of others. It is a devotion to the one who knows your heart better than any warrior, who created you to thrive in peace, and who calls you to walk in the light of clarity, balance, and truth. Letting go of harmful individuals is an act of courage, faith, and self-respect. It is a spiritual discipline that teaches you to prioritize peace over approval, growth over comfort, and divine alignment over human expectation. It is a reminder that your soul is sacred, that your faith is precious, and that choosing protection over tolerance, boundaries over chaos, and divine guidance over human demand is a profound form of worship. In protecting yourself, you are not turning away from love. You are turning toward what is eternal, meaningful, and aligned with the one who created you, entrusted you with a heart, and desires your peace above all else.